Hey guys, welcome to The Writer's Journey. I'm your host, Lauren Moore, and with me is the beautiful and talented Kayleen Williams. We are two authors on a journey to learn more about writing success, so thanks for joining us tonight. Tonight we are talking about the scams that are out there preying on unsuspecting authors and how we can identify them, how we can avoid them, and if we think we've been the victim of one, what we can do about it. Tonight on the show, we have one of the authors behind the big website, Writer Beware, which if you've done any time at all looking into the different publishing scams that authors can find themselves in, you've probably come across this website. It brings together a listing of all the different scams that are out there, the complaints that have been made, and it shows you step-by-step what you can do about those scams. And we have with us Richard White. Richard, thanks for joining us on tonight's show.
Well, thank you all for inviting me. This is really exciting. I'm looking forward to the show tonight.
Now, Richard and I met at AwesomeCon about a month ago, and when I met him and found out what he does and what he writes, I knew I had to bring him on the show and share him with you guys so he could share his wealth of knowledge. Richard, Kayleen, how are you guys doing tonight?
I'm doing pretty good. Catching up on all the backlog of things I need to do and checking off boxes, so that feels really nice. Catching up on stuff.
And I dig your hair. Something's different.
It's a little purple now. Nice. And blue.
Nice.
And Richard, I dig your hair too.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I work hard on this. You know what there is of it.
Actually, I'm super jealous of your hair because since I was about 8 years old, I have wanted snow white hair. So,
my daughter's stylist says I could dye it any color I want to because they don't have to strip it now.
This is true. Yeah.
No, things are going well for me also. I mean, I'm trying to keep busy. I've got one book that we finally went final on, so it will be coming out in July. I've got another book that I'm querying to agents myself, and I've got 4 books in the middle of writing. You know, I really should actually finish one of them, but I've got 4 projects I'm doing currently simultaneously because I'm an idiot.
It's hard to do just one. I mean, there's just too many stories. Got to do them all.
Oh, heck yeah.
You get excited. And then it's nice when you get stuck on one to have something else to kind of fall back on and move forward on.
And one of them actually was inspired at AwesomeCon because I've had several parents come up to me asking if I had stuff appropriate for their kids. And I mean, it's not like I write, I'm not an erotica writer, but I tend to write more at a high school, lower college level. That's what I try to aim for. Probably not. There's probably just not quite right for a 10-year-old. I mean, unless you're a high reader. So I've decided I've found an old Welsh legend, and I'm going to convert it and try and do my first middle grade reader, and hopefully have it out for next year's conventions.
Which Welsh?
That'll be fun. Yeah, that's what I want to know.
Oh, pardon?
Which Welsh legend?
It's actually it's kind of a couple of them. One, it's covering the big war between the Welsh and the Irish, because I can't remember her name right off the top of my head. Sorry, I've got so many stories going through my head. It's hard to keep them straight. But she winds up getting married to the King of Ireland, but he's kind of abusive to her, and he throws her down into the scullery maids and stuff. And so of course then her brothers get offended by this, and then you have this big war between the Welsh and the Irish, and pretty much all the heroes of Ireland and Wales get killed in this war.
Wow.
It's kind of Camelot before, the battles of Camelot before Camelot existed.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of some Grimm's tales that I've heard before.
That
and a reverse Helen of Troy or something.
Mm-hmm. And then there's another Welsh legend that talks about the Silkie, which not the Selkie, which is the seal woman, but the Silkie is a ghost or a spirit of somebody who's been mistreated by a loved one.
Mm.
So I was able to tie the whole thing about the wife being mistreated. Now she's basically stuck here at this castle 500, 600 years later, still trying to find true love so that she can be released and you know, go on either with her life or onto the afterlife, or however it's going to wind up coming up. But, you know, as it is, she's just kind of stuck at a castle, and she befriends one of the young girls who's working as a scullery maid at the castle.
Yeah.
Oh, that sounds like it's going to be actually a bit of a tear-jerky sweet ending. I kind of like that.
I'm hoping so.
Make them cry.
Just gotta remember, though, now, Bella, do not get carried away. Do not write a 3-volume, novel. 30,000 words. That's what we're shooting for.
Well, Caitlin, speaking of making them cry, I guess we should go back to tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is the things that, can make authors cry, and that is scammers that are out there. One of the questions I get the most from new authors is authors coming to me with a contract that they've gotten from a publisher, and the contract says, yeah, we would love to publish your book. Just pay us $3,000 and a percentage of the royalties, and we would be happy. We would be honored to publish your book for you. So you get comments like this. So what would you say to an author who brings you a contract similar to this? What would be your advice to them?
First thing I would say is something that I say in every when I do my workshops and presentations at different conventions. If somebody approaches you asking you for money, run, do not walk to the nearest exit, because you want to get out of there, because this person does not have your best interest at heart. No, first off, the first rule is authors get paid. They don't pay. So we want to encourage people to understand a trade publisher, or someone who claims to be a trade publisher, they are going to be paying you. They should be paying you up front, in the form of an advance, and then you get a percentage of royalties. Now, if you work for a smaller publisher, then you might not get an advance, but you should be getting a larger percentage of royalties. The problem is, again, the smaller the publisher, probably the less books you're going to sell. So, you got, 10% of 10,000 books sold, it sounds better than, 30% of 50 to 100 books sold. So you got to, kind of weigh, what's the best value you're going to get. And if you're self-publishing, you have to separate your writer self from the publisher self. You should be paying yourself something. If you're just taking all the money you're getting from self-publishing and plowing it right back into the company, you're basically publishing for free. Because if you're not making any money, why are you doing this? So, the author should pay themselves, even if they're self-publishing. But I will tell you, one of the worst things I see is when people come up and say it's going to cost, like you said, $3,000, $5,000, $17,000. I work with a micropress to republish some of my stuff that's already been published and I've gotten the rights back to. I'll tell you right now, I spend about $500 for an editor. I might spend as much as $500 for a cover, and maybe $300 or $400 for designers. That's about $1,400. If somebody wants $3,000 to publish you, they've made their profit right there before you ever get book one.
Yeah, real quick, with the editing cost, $500, that's for a book that's been previously published, right? And previously edited. So this editor is mostly proofreading at that point, right?
Proofreading, and he does do some content, because again, like some of the stuff I've done is like been a collection of short stories. So, story may have drifted over. So he catches continuity and things like that also. I mean, obviously some editors are can be much more expensive, but depending on how much work they've got to do and how much if they're doing content editing along with the copy editing and the proofreading and such. Because there's 3 different types of editors out there, and people need to know, what kind of editor they're hiring, if they're hiring an editor. But I'm telling you, most publishers, if they're coming to you and saying, well, we can do this for X amount, you have to assume that they've built their profits into this. One of the companies that is no longer in business, thank God, but they weren't charging people up front. That they were doing what we call a reverse vanity press. They weren't charging you up front, but then they were pricing your books so high, nobody would buy them except for maybe friends and family and you. They were counting on you buying books to sell somewhere else. But they were like a 200-page book they were trying to sell for $24.95. But wait, this month we will sell it to you for 50% off if you buy 50 copies. And where were they getting their editing? They were hiring kids from the local junior college to edit the books. So there wasn't a whole lot of money going out for them and a whole lot of money coming in.
Yeah, that was one of the very, very first things when I started thinking about publishing, indie publishing, was stay away from the vanity press, which is the people who will come to you, give me X amount of money, and I will publish for you.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, just run away. So,
go ahead.
Oh no, if you have an extra comment, go on.
No, and I'm just saying, and now there's a kind of a new in-house market, since it's harder to get people to buy vanity stuff. There's a lot of people out there selling, shall we say, useless stuff to self-publishers. They're offering to set up their websites for them for like $500, or they're offering promotional stuff like putting them on a mailing list. You can do this yourself. You don't need to be paying people. But there are just different companies you can just see are listing all these benefits they're giving for self-publishers, and really they're not worth the electrons that you're reading.
So that's actually a good little segue into the next question. So with the vanity presses, with the those who are advertising to advertise for you, what are some of the most common types of scams that you see out there in the netherworld?
Well, one thing we're looking at, one of the former vanity presses, it's still out there, called Author Solutions. Well, they kind of split up because they had farmed a lot of their stuff out to the Philippines and then cut all those people off. So they're setting up their own companies to quote unquote help authors. So again, they're selling a lot of useless promotional stuff, a lot of they're offering to you do the work and we'll handle the publishing. We'll take care of the publishing, which really all that means is that they're going to Lightning Source or to Create Space instead of you. And I'm like going, why are you paying them 30%, 50% of your cover price to do something that you could do yourself? There's also, and here's where I've been catching a lot of flack lately, but I'm going to stand by this. The vanities have not gone away. They've just relabeled themselves. Because now you'll see them as coming up as co-ops, hybrids, partnership, anything like that. Anywhere where they say you put in so much money and we'll put in so much money. And we say this because one of the biggest offenders of this, thank God, they just got sent to prison, was Tate Publishing down in Oklahoma, because they were a Christian publisher. So they were preying on a lot of religious people. And they were saying, you put in $4,000 and we'll put in $4,000. Now, I just gave you all how much it costs me to go through a micropress, because basically I'm packaging. I'm handling everything except for the actual publishing. And the micropress is handling the publishing just because I don't want to have to get an account at Lightning Source. But basically they're saying, oh, we were paying $8,000, $10,000 for you. And they weren't putting in anything, because if they can print the book, they had their own press. Mm-hmm. They were printing the books there. So, you put in your $4,000, it costs them maybe $2,000, $2,500 for a hardback edition, and then they got $1,500 profit right there before you, and then they get a percentage of all your books. So and now everybody keeps promoting this hybrid thing. Well, see, no, there are hybrid authors. Hybrid authors means you're trade published and self-publishing. There is no such thing as a hybrid publisher, because that's a conflict of interest. If they're asking you to put in money, something's wrong.
So bottom line, if someone comes to you, especially for publishing, it's like, hey, give me money, do not fall for it. Run away.
Bye. Yeah, that's a definite.
Push your own button.
Yes, I mean, because honestly, most of this stuff, I mean, not that I'm a huge Amazon fan, but KDP is reasonably intuitive. I mean, you got to do it right. You got to take your time. I mean, obviously, self-publishing is a business. You need to learn it. Mm-hmm. Just like if you were setting up, a restaurant, you don't go into a restaurant without at least having a rough idea how to cook. If you're going to be a publisher, you need to study and learn how to be a publisher. The trouble is Amazon and other places and self-publishing gurus have made it sound real. Oh, it's so easy. Just throw your book up online and get it out there, and you're a published author, which is true. Mm-hmm. And you're one of how many thousands of books that just got uploaded today? And a lot of them look like they were just uploaded today. So you need to take some time, slow down, learn the business side of publishing for yourself if you're going to self-publish.
Now, speaking about the business side of publishing, for an author who's just learning all of this or hoping to publish their first book, they didn't even realize that going through the steps of uploading your book to CreateSpace is actually pretty easy, and they can do it. You authors out there, you can do it. It really is pretty simple. So we've got a lot to learn. What are some other aspects of writing and publishing that an author will need to do that we might not know yet we are capable of doing, and we don't need to hire someone else to do it for us?
Well, like I said, there's like I said, it depends on what your goals are also with publishing. I mean, if you're going to be trade publishing, there's a whole nother set of landmines you have to worry about there. On the publishing side, especially if you're self-publishing, I mean, you need to, people need to know, one, please, for God's sake, do not self-publish your Nano on 1 December, please. That's a first draft. Stop the insanity. It needs to be edited. It needs to be laid out. And the thing is, you don't have to do this on your own. There are YouTube videos. There are tutorials online. There's something called a library that still exists. Section 800 has books on publishing. So go and study before you try to throw something out there. Get involved with writer groups. There's a lot of groups on Twitter. There's a lot of groups on Facebook. There's some great writers forums. One I highly recommend is called Absolute Right, absoluteright.com. There are tons of self-publishers there of people who've been doing it for 10, 12 years and people who started last month. And they're working together and trying to keep each other from, making the same mistakes that people have made. And they're very good at sharing information. Writers groups on Twitter are very good at sharing information. This worked for me. This didn't work for me. Should I use Amazon ads? Should I use Facebook ads? Yada, yada, yada. Well, what? And also check how much money you got going out. The biggest problem I see with self-publishers is they don't have a business plan because they don't think about publishing as a business. So they don't think about how much money they're spending until they look and go, oh my God, where did all that money go? Try to think it out ahead of time. How much money do I want to spend on an editor, on art? Do I want to use, free clip art and make sure it's royalty free clip art? Don't be just because it's on the internet doesn't mean you can use it as a cover.
Yeah, we do the homework on that for sure.
Yeah, I saw one that basically somebody had taken a picture of Orlando Bloom and changed some colors and changed his hair color, and was trying to use that as their book cover. And needless to say, his lawyers were not amused, and that got ugly in a hurry. But just, like I said, just slow down and if you write and I'm not saying write a business plan, like write this 42-page document that's notarized and everything. I'm just saying sit down and take some notes to yourself. What do I want? What are reasonable amounts of money I think I can get back? And how much, how do I stay within my budget? Because it's real easy to get carried away in this, that, and the other thing. And then you go to conventions, and then you got hotel bills, and, then all of a sudden you look around, you've spent, $6,000, $7,000, and what have I had to show for it?
All right. So as authors, we can write our manuscript. We can find a really great editor. We can find a really great cover designer. We can publish it ourselves. We can market it ourselves. I know on your Writer Beware website, you have a whole section on editors. Let's just go ahead and jump to that, touch on that real quick. And then we'll have to do a show sponsor after this. But for editors, how can we find a good one? Well, what are some ways that editors can scam you? What red flags should we be looking for? And then how do we find a good editor?
Okay, first thing is if you submit to an agent or a publisher, and then they write back and say, not quite what we're looking for, but I know an editor who could hook you up for this. That's probably not a good sign, because odds are the publisher is going to get a kickback, or the agent's getting a kickback from that editor. And there you have to, if you go to the Writer Beware site on sifwa.org, and then we have a subpage under, we have some links to something called 7% or 10% of Nothing, which is that was all about the it's a book about Edit Inc., which was one of the biggest kickback scams in publishing. And it was a very interesting story, and it would take way too long to tell here. So, but if you can check it out on our website, you'll find it quite eye-opening, though. But talk to people who are, again, go visit these writer sites, talk to people on Twitter, talk to people on Facebook, talk to people at conventions, and find out who, if they have a freelance editor, who are they using, and then talk to them, find out what their rates are, because some people do it by the hour, some people do it by the page or by the word, and trust me, if what doesn't sound like a lot by the word, until you realize you've got 140,000 word document that they're getting ready to edit, and here comes the bill. And now here's where editors hate me, and I understand this. You always want to try and get a sample. They should edit 3 or 4, anywhere from 3 to 4 to a chapter, and you should be able to see what kind of edit. And just one, it's self-protection for you, because you want to make sure you and the editor are on the same wavelength. But editors hate this because, and some writers who need to have their hands slapped have done this really cute thing where they were sending chapter 1 to us editor. Oh, well, I don't think we're going to work together. And then sending chapter 2 to a different editor and getting their whole book edited. We're just as bad as the editors and publishers are sometimes, guys. So I can't say all writers are wonderful. Most of us are wonderful people, but there's a few knuckleheads out there.
I do have a comment on that, sending a chapter to a whole bunch of different editors to be like getting free editing for a book. Okay, first of all, you now have you have a 30 chapter book. You have 30 different editor voices with 30 different ways of doing things. None of them know the full understanding of your character voice, your story arcs, your development of the everything. Don't do it. Okay.
Yeah, and you just made yourself a stink to all those editors,
right?
They talk. Editors know each other and talk.
Publishing is a lot smaller than people think it is. I mean, it's amazing how many people, like I said, I do a lot of conventions. It's amazing how many people I will run into, at this show, and then 6 months later at that show. And you won't believe what I heard about such and such.
Yeah, and that's also a good point to editors and authors out there. Yes, free writing samples. Most editors will agree to that. We'll be happy to give you a free writing sample. But the next step is contracts.
Yeah.
And you definitely, whether you're an editor or a client, you want a contract that lays out exactly what the editing services are going to do, are going to accomplish. If there's any deliverables that are expected aside from the manuscript, it lays it all out clearly, and also how the relationship will be terminated or can be terminated other than the manuscript being completed. So if for some reason, schedules come up, a family emergency comes up, and the manuscript won't be done on time or can't be accomplished, the contract should also say how the relationship will be dissolved. So editors, authors, please have a contract.
And remember, a contract is not for when things are going good. A contract is there for when things go to hell. You definitely want to know who's doing what to whom.
Yeah, and it's just nice to have all the expectations clearly laid out. It just makes everyone friendly, keeps us all friendly. It's good. It's good.
I also recommend highly, since you brought up contracts just real quick, if you decide to co-write with somebody, I don't care if they're your brother, your sister, your bestest friend for the last 50 years, get a contract. Because if you decide you want to go one way and they want to go a different way, and you decide to, stop writing, and I'm taking my characters, you're wait, no, that's my character. Wait, no. And I have seen bad things happen amongst friendships from co-writing when co-writing didn't work out. So even if it's your best friend, get a contract if you're doing anything with writing, art, anything creative, because again, like I said, it's not because I don't trust you. I just want to make sure that we all agree. And then 10 years from now, we remembered that we agreed to do this.
It helps to not create bad blood because no one.
Absolutely.
All right. And on that note, before we get back to, which I actually find quite interesting because we all need to know the underbelly of the fun stuff. It's our show sponsor tonight, which is Wholesale Slaughter. Wholesale Slaughter, book 1 by Rick Partlow. A king can't defeat an army of lawless pirates, but a mercenary can. Logan Conner is the son of a king, the heir to the largest of the 5-star dominions, and the best mech pilot in the galaxy. His people are plagued by pirates and raiders, surrounded by enemies, and not even his father can fight them all. Logan gives up his position, his rank, even his name, and becomes Jonathan Slaughter, leader of a rough-and-ready band of mercenary mech-jocks, bent on taking the battle to the enemy on their own terms. Their Wholesale Slaughter. Kicking ass is what they do. Get book 1 in this thrilling and unpredictable military sci-fi adventure today. Also available on Audible, narrated by the award-winning Mark Veeder.
Woohoo!
Click. Bye. I hear it is amazing.
I dig that blurb. That was a really good blurb, huh?
That was.
Yeah.
Great reading, of course.
Thank you. I like that part. That's my favorite part of the show. Not that I don't love our guests, but
No, that was very well.
All right, I had a question about the scams and the different kinds of scams. Have you seen a lot of the older types of scams, like the vanity presses and the publishing houses? Have you seen the number of cases declining or staying steady?
Some of the people that we have been following, I've been with Writer Beware since 2007, and we had probably 10 or 12 that were just really bad between authors and I mean bad agents and bad publishers. Haven't seen much. A couple of them are out of business, thank goodness. One company sued itself out of business, and when the people who were in charge decided to break up and try to divvy up their ill-gotten gains. I can't say scammers. Our lawyers yell at me if I say scammers, but I can say less than who I would go for publishers.
Can we say alleged scammers?
I can't even say that, because if I do that, my lawyer will come out from behind me with a big club and smack me upside the head. But no, we had, again, now I want to make it clear, vanity presses in and of themselves are not a bad thing, because they serve a purpose. If you use them as a printer, okay, say you're doing a church cookbook, or you're doing a family history that only your family's going to read, use a vanity press, print out 20 copies, hand them out to all your grandkids, boom, you're done. Perfectly fine. If you're a speaker who does, like how they do those financial advisors who do those talks, and at the back of the room they've got like 50 copies of their books. Well, they sell 30 of them. They call up the press. They say, hey, I need 20 more. Drop ship to XY. I'm going to be there next week. They show up. They get their books. They sell them at the thing. Makes perfect sense. What they don't work for is fiction, because since they're not set up to be distributed. So like bookstores can't order them. And honestly, I know everybody goes, oh, but Amazon's out there. No. I'm telling you right now, most books are still found in bookstores. Now, not bought in bookstores, unfortunately, but they're usually found in bookstores, either in the independent or local publishers area in a bookstore, if you've got a good indie bookstore, or like at the Barnes and Noble. That's where, like, as a science fiction fantasy person, that's where I go first to look to see who's got the new stuff out. I honestly don't have time to go to Amazon and search through the thousands and thousands of books that are published there new every week. So, for me, I just go to the bookstore because I know where to find them, and they're kind of organized. But no, vanity presses are, in and of themselves, are not bad. But what you have to watch out for are the ones that promote that. They're trying you, because they're usually the ones that approach you. Hey, we want to give you the chance you've been deserving, and we're all one big family here. I'm not looking for a family. I have a family. I'm looking for a business relationship. When somebody starts coming up and talking to you about being a family environment, that usually means we all don't narc on each other. And they use that to quell dissent when people don't have a good reaction with them. But the vanities, the less reputable vanity presses, and what I call the reverse vanity presses, the ones, again, that suck you in and then charge you out on the backside, by all they do is author mills. If there was one of the publishers was talking about they had 80,000 authors. First off, how do you handle 80,000 authors with a staff of like 12?
That's insane.
Well, you do it because you do minimal editing. You slap on a cover that's clip art, and you sell it back to your authors. You're not even trying to sell it, to anybody else. You don't want. Matter of fact, the worst thing that can happen to you in a situation like that is to actually have a hit, because they're not designed and set up to deal with a book that actually sells thousands of copies. They'll actually dump that author because that's more headache than they want to deal with. They want to only sell 15 to 20 outside of to the author. Sell it back to the author. Let them deal with it and have to have these stacks of books in their garage for the next 20 years or whatever. Because we all love our books, and we buy our own books to give away to people and to sell and things like that. But that's what these especially the reverse vanities count on, is that you will buy your own book, especially if they offer you a good deal on it.
Right. And it sounds like they're preying on people who just don't have enough information yet to know that they can publish these things themselves.
They do focus on older people. They do focus on very young people. I've seen some of these things that are aimed at schools. They will approach a teacher and offer to publish their kids' books. Now, and again, the teacher isn't in publishing, and she's thinking, "Oh, this is a great opportunity," and and I've seen them, going after, writing to senior citizen organizations, offering to, do a seminar and show you all how to publish, and we'll look at publishing you all, and it's really sad, because these people will drop big money and basically have nothing to show for, a badly edited, badly designed book that nobody will buy. They're stuck with them because there's no returnability.
Yeah. So other than these kinds of vanity presses and also the so-called hybrid presses, are there other kinds of scams you've seen recently kind of popping up? New.
Well, we still have problems with agents. There are agents out there some agents who also run publishing houses. That is a conflict of interest. I mean, it's one thing if like they're helping some of their clients who've gotten their books back, and then they're kind of working with them to self-publish, their back stock, make e-copies so that they can keep it out there and keep getting money from it. But I mean, these are agents who say, oh, I couldn't find a publisher for you, but I happen to know this publisher here. And it turns out that they actually own that publisher too. Agents who are still asking for money. They want reading fees. If you're serious about your book, you'll pay us to read your book. No, that's not that. Agents are not supposed to ask for money to read your book. Agents offering editing for a fee. I mean, most agents will edit your book. Not all, but a lot of them. You will go through a couple of rounds of editing with an agent before it ever goes to a publisher. But if the agent is trying to farm you off to an editor they know, again, like I said, there's a good possibility that either they own that editing company or they're getting money back from that editing company. I mean, there's just some, like I said, and none of it's ever big. Like one of the agents we had a hard time going after was simply because nothing was too high. $50 for a reading fee, $90 to set up a website for their client, $40 for postage to mail all their stuff around, and it was just nickel and dime. But it was never enough, and as an individual, that we could get the state attorney general to go after them, because they're looking at billion-dollar drug busts and stuff. They aren't getting somebody excited about a $250 loss for an editor, or for a loss for an author. It doesn't really rate on their visibility. I mean, they agree it's wrong, but they've only got so much time and so much money too.
So for those authors who especially newer ones, or total blank spot right there. Come back to me. Who might not exactly know what the purpose of an agent is, because Anthony DeMarco in the chat saying agents make money when they sell your book.
Yes, absolutely right.
Yeah, those are we've said all the things that an agent definitely should not be doing. So what are some of the things that an agent definitely does do for you?
Okay, well, first off, agents should only be working on commission. A standard commission is 15% or 20% for if they sell your book overseas, but that's because they're splitting that with the agent in Germany or England or whatever. But they're the ones that have the knowledge of the publishers, what editor is looking for what. The worst thing you can do is have, and some of these agents have done some of the, and I won't say they're scammers, but they're inexperienced, because there is no rules about. If I wanted to say, Kayleen, you're an agent right now. There is no licensing. There is no nothing. There's no college degree. Anybody who wants to can become an agent. A friend of mine had to set up his cat as an agent.
Oh my goodness.
And Sydney used to get manuscripts. It was on the website. You could see Sydney was a cat, and Sydney would get submissions. Why? Because they would see agent, and they would mail it off to the mailbox, because we don't think. We're in such a hurry to get published. We don't think. And I mean, I was just as guilty as that when I started myself. But agents are going to be out there. They're going to be shepherding your book. Also, agents they play the bad guy, because like if there's a question about, hey, where's this payment? Where, something's going on with this editor, we need to talk to the publisher. You don't want to have the author and the editor going at loggerheads. The agent will step in and be the bad guy. That's where they're earning their money. Again, not everything requires an agent. Not all presses require an agent. Not even some of the big companies require an agent. But a lot of if you're wanting to be trade published, and note, I'm saying trade published, not traditionally published, because traditionally published was started by one of the scammers, because they would call themselves a traditional publisher when they were actually not. But it caught on. The proper term is actually trade publishing.
Oh, I just learned something today.
So it's but yeah, so your agent, again, should know, what's, what editors are looking for. They'll be ones going back to you and saying, hey, I think you got, hopefully if you got things like they're looking at it, do you really need 7 POVs in this story? Maybe you can get by with 5. We need to, tighten it up here. And they'll work and try to help you mold the story. Now, obviously, it's your story. You don't have to do it. But then again, they also don't have to represent you if you, become a problem child. But, it is a fine line. It is a working relationship. That's how they earn their commission, because they want you to succeed. They want you to be the next J.K. Rowling, because they want their own castle too. So the more books you can sell, the better off. And that's why you don't pay an agent up front, because once you've given the agent money, what do they care? They've made their money. If you don't make any money, that's your problem.
All right. So if you want to submit to a trade publisher, you need an agent to do it, but you need to have an experienced agent who has all these connections. How do you find one of those agents and know which one would be the best one for your book?
That's where research. Obviously you got to do your research. There are some places like Query Tracker, Publishers Weekly has a free daily report that comes out, and it'll list these people have sold these books. Another thing is just simply go to use the look inside on Amazon, or go to a bookstore. A lot of times published authors thank their agents. Well, if you're reading their book and they're thanking their agent, that means that agent has sold something. That's a good thing.
They're doing their job and they're doing it well.
Also, if you look at, if you're not sure, if you especially when you're doing, I'm seeing now on Twitter, they're doing all the different pitch competitions. You pitch and then people can like your stuff. And if you're not sure, especially if you don't recognize the name of the agent or the publisher, again, I recommend on absolutewrite.com. There's we have a section called the Bewares, Recommendations, and Background Check Forum. And the index has been alphabetized. Every agent, every publisher, every editor, every publicist that anybody has ever had a question about, the moderator has them links to those threads. Some going back as far as 2004, 2005. Now, if they had a thread started in 2005 and they're still in existence, that's a good sign, because a lot of publishers don't make it more than 2 years. The bad part is when a publisher, if you don't have a good contract with that publisher and they just disappear, your book's gone. Because if you don't have a letter of reversion from that publisher when they go out of business, you can't publish it again, and no other publisher will touch it. Because if, say, another publisher picks it up and sells 100,000 copies of it, that old publisher could come back and say, hey, wait, that's my property. You owe me a percentage of all that money. Yeah. So you need a clean revision or release from that publisher. But what happens is a lot of times these publishers, especially small publishers, they don't start out to be scammers, but they're inexperienced. A lot of them are frustrated authors who just couldn't get published, so they set up a publishing company to help other people. Which, great idea, but no. And but they get ahead, they get going, and they pick up a few authors, and they pick up a few more authors, and things are going good. And then say there's a family emergency, and so now they got to take a little money, because a lot of them haven't separated the company money from their home money. So they may use some of the company money to cover car repair or something. Well, that means now they can't make up the royalties for the next check. Well, they mean to make it up, but say then a couple of books don't sell as well. Now people start writing them about, hey, where's my royalties? Well, then they got to start going back and forth, and then they get and again, they didn't start out to be scammers, but then they start feeling guilty, and then they go radio silent, and they don't answer mail, and again, it's just like poof, they're gone, and so's your book, or they're all the rights to your book. So you want to be sure. I mean, we recommend if it's a brand new publisher to wait at least 2 years before submitting to them, because if they're still in business after 2 years, there's a good chance they're going to stick around for a while. But yeah, it's amazing how many publishers I've seen come and go over just the last 10 years. I mean, again, well-intentioned, but just not good business people.
So as far as kind of going back to the contracts, Guy Anthony DeMarco has a good question. What are some bad contract clauses to watch out for?
What should be in a contract?
Yeah.
One thing is you need to have a definite period. How long do they have the rights to publish your book? And then there should be a clear thing like, say, okay, you have my first North American English rights for 2 years. At the end of 2 years, then we will, if I or you don't agree to cancel the book, say it's got bad sales, why would they want to keep it themselves? Then we renew it again for another 2 years or so on. I mean, there should be a certain time, like if after so many years or after so many months in a row where I don't sell more than X number of books, the rights revert back to me. So there should be a clear, because people go, oh, well, if they go bankrupt, I'll get my book back. No, your book is actually property, and the bank will seize the rights to your book, trying to get whatever money they can out of the bankruptcy court. So your contract definitely wants to have a clear, how do you get my rights back? You want to have a thing that says your book must, from the time I turn my book into you, you have to publish it within so many months, or whatever time. So that if they don't publish it, if they just sit on it, after a while, again, you get your rights back. Royalties. Are they doing royalties on cover, or are they doing them on net? Big difference. Because, if I say I've got a book that's, $5.99, and Amazon puts it on 40% off, if it's on net, I'm not making that $5.99, or my percentage off isn't off $5.99. It's off whatever Amazon decides to sell it for. And Amazon doesn't always tell you that they're going to put it on sale that month. So if you're doing net, what you're getting from net is and then you got to figure out, what do they mean by net? Because are they saying, well, we'll pay you, say you're getting 40% on ebooks. Is that 40% after Amazon takes its 40%? Or is that 40% after Amazon takes its 40% and then the publisher pays all of its? It's very easy to get into Hollywood accounting here. This book can never make money and still sell thousands of copies, all depending on how they're doing the accounting. That should all be laid out in your contract. You need to know. And if they don't want to tell you, there's probably a reason they don't want to tell you. And that should be a big red flag going off right there.
So what's that other one that you mentioned? Not net, but
or cover.
Cover, yeah. What's that one? Because I've not
actually, like I said, my trade paperbacks. If I actually sell a hard copy, I sell them for $14.99. So if I was getting 10% cover price, I would get $1.49 or $1.50 for every book, regardless of how much it was discounted for, because they got to pay me on the cover price.
Oh, so this is the price that it is listed at. So if you list it for $9.99, if you list it for $6.99, if it's covered, then you will be paid percentage off of that.
Right. Which is usually why cover percentage is a little lower, because that's a guaranteed price. I mean, no matter what the publisher gets, you get a certain percent. If they're selling on net, they usually offer you a much larger percentage. But again, you got to figure out how they're figuring net.
Yeah. What large percent of what dollar amount are you getting?
Exactly. I mean, and again, if you've talked to anybody who's worked out in Hollywood, I mean, I have a friend of mine who you're familiar with the movie The Crow.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was big in Hollywood, lots of showings. It's been out on DVD and stuff for years. I know people who've never gotten paid because they swear up and down they never made $1 on that movie. Where did that money go? I don't know. It's the accountants. Blame them. But there are still people waiting to get the royalties that have never seen them.
So you're telling me that to figure out whether I want cover or net, I've got to do math, and my math teacher was right all this time?
I'm afraid either that or you need to make friends with an accountant yourself and have them look it over and say, what exactly am I getting into? And it might be worth and honestly, now people say, oh, just get a lawyer. No. Don't get a lawyer. Get an intellectual property lawyer. They are hard to find, but there are some groups out there that actually will do pro bono for writers. I can't think of it right off the top of my head. I didn't do my homework, sorry, but it's not hard to find the groups out there that can help authors, especially if you just have little quick questions about contracts and stuff.
Yeah, that kind of brings us to our next question. Writer Beware has a whole section on copyright. What intellectual property rights do writers have when they publish, and how can they protect those rights?
Well, and actually, that's where your contract comes. You need to read your contract very closely, because some publishers will ask for, like, you're looking like, okay, I'm selling, first North American rights or something, right? Some people will say, oh, I want you to sign the copyright over to me. Or if you're dealing with, in some European publishers have asked for all moral rights. Basically what it means is you're giving them the book. They can do whatever they want to with it. They can change it. They can make movies of your property, and you have no say, and you will probably get no money out of it. Matter of fact, I can almost guarantee you get no money out of it. Sorry.
I wouldn't even concede that they would put that in the contract, but
you have to be careful. Now, see, and people get confused because, like, I've done media tie-in work, which is where I'm writing about something that I don't own. I've had a chance to write for Doctor Who and Star Trek and some stuff like that. I do not own Doctor Who. Anything I wrote for Doctor Who, I did not own. It all belongs to the BBC. That's okay. It's their property. They're letting me play in their sandbox. That's why I try to use their characters, though, instead of create. Because see, if I create any original characters, they own them.
Yep.
Nope. I would much rather use their characters. Why give them? Why give characters away for free? But but that's already all explained in the contract. That going in, that you don't own any of this stuff. This is their property. If you're writing original fiction, those words should not be in that contract anywhere. Because again, now I know there's all kinds of myths and rumors out there. You own copyright from the second you create the first computer document or put the first writing down on paper. It's already copywritten. Now, it's not registered, but you don't want to register your book unless you're self-publishing. Because, if say I write a manuscript and I send it immediately to the Library of Congress and get it registered. Well, what happens if I send it to a medium-sized publisher and they want revisions? I had to make the revisions, and then I had to recopyright it. Every time you make a change, you've got to change the copyright. So, and it's really the mark of a new author to try and. I mean, they don't even. publishers and agents don't want to see that little copyright symbol, up at the top of your pages, because they already know it's copywritten to you. So, and also this myth about just mail it to yourself in an envelope.
Yeah.
Not why I could send a blank envelope unsealed through the mail and then stick stuff in it whenever I wanted to afterwards and seal it. Who's going to know? It'll have the stamp on it. It'll have the postmark. That could have been an empty envelope. So the poor man's copyright it has never stood up in court, but people keep talking about it like it's a thing.
I know that CreateSpace and Amazon, they give you an ISBN number when you publish through them, but should we be getting our own if we're self-publishing?
Unless you're planning on going strictly with Amazon, I would recommend it, because again, the ASIN only works for Amazon. You really can't. Then you can't. I mean, and again, if you're in the Kindle, I forget.
Kindle Unlimited.
Kindle Unlimited.
They keep changing the name slightly. Sure. I mean, if you're only going to do Amazon, using an ASIN is probably fine. But if you're going to do print, if you want to send it through Barnes & Noble, if you want to be able to sell on iBooks or drive-through publishing or, half a dozen other places, having your own ISBN. And remember, you need a separate ISBN for each version. So if you got an ebook and a print book, you need 2 ISBNs. If you do an audio book, that's another ISBN. But those are tied to you or your publishing company if you decide to use set up a publishing company or imprint. If other people offer to sell you them, that's going to come back and say that your book belongs to them. So you're better off buying your own. And I mean, I know they're not cheap. But again, it's an expense that you need to account for if you're going to self-publish.
How do you get one? I heard they're around $100.
I think so. I think Bowkers, Bowkers, is one of the places you can get them. There may be a couple of others. Again, I've never actually self-published. I have packaged, which is where I hired the artist, the editor, the designers. But then I actually went to a small press to handle the actual publishing and distribution of my book.
So as far as sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. As far as like the ISBNs go, it also depends on the country that you're in. So Bowkers is definitely like the US based. Now for like the UK and the other, I can't remember what it's called, obviously because I'm US based, so I would use Bowkers. But there's a separate company that has ISBNs that you can purchase that they distribute to for those other places. So definitely do research on that, and definitely buying them in bulk also helps. And you also need to consider the price of turning that ISBN into a barcode.
Yes,
that is also an extra expense on top of the ISBNs themselves.
Right, and it's like you said, the bulk is because it's not like they expire.
Yeah.
So if you can get a good deal on, and sometimes Bowkers runs like for Americans they'll run a special. If you buy like 100 of them, they run them much cheaper than if you buy them in groups of 10. Again, if you think you've got 100 variations of your books, say you've got like 20 book series that you're planning on putting out, you could burn through 100 ISBNs pretty quick if you're not careful.
Absolutely. So we are coming to the end of the hour. Did you have any last minute questions, Lauren?
Yeah, if you do think you've been taken advantage of, what can we do about it? Where should we go for help?
One, you can always get in contact with Victoria Strauss. Victoria Strauss is the chairman of Writer Beware. So if you write to beware at SFWA, SFWA.org, that goes right into our mailbox. You can also reach us at accrispin.blogspot.com. That's our blog. You can, certainly, there's contact information on our blog to reach any of us. Address us at a convention if you happen to see us. I bounce around a lot here on the East Coast. Also, in various writer, talk to the writer groups too, because there's three of us right now. There are only actually three of us in Writer Beware. There's Victoria, myself, and Michael Capabianco, which is unfortunate because all three of us are on the East Coast, so we really can't get around the country and talk to people the way we'd like to, and be available. So yes, if you're a SIFWA member out there listening and want to join a committee, we're looking for people. But yeah, and everything that's sent to us is treated confidentially. We will not deal though with anonymous submissions. Because if we go and look into stuff, we're expecting you to have, give us, the paperwork. We want to see copies of the and if you have a question about a contract, you can always send it to Victoria. She admits she's not a lawyer, but she has seen so many contracts over the years. She can tell you, hey, this looks a little funny. You might want to go back and get a clarification on this. She's more than happy to do that for people. I haven't seen as many contracts. I'm more the, I go to the conventions and talk to people and do the workshops and things like that. But we have an in-depth database on companies, agents, publicists, all different types of people that people have, and everything we get isn't a complaint. Sometimes we get notes that say, "Hey, this guy did a fantastic job," and which we're always happy to get to, because it's nice to know that, because when you only deal with, it's like why cops have such a bad attitude, because when you only deal with, the bad people, you start to get an attitude that everybody's a bad person.
Well, Writer Beware definitely sounds like a hub of amazing information that all as authors, illustrators, anyone who is out there developing things, putting things out there, definitely go check it out. I was going to ask you where people could find you, but I think you've answered that, unless there's another place people can find you.
And your books.
And my books, you can always go to richardcwhite, all one word.com. I have a list of all of my books there in my bibliography, and eventually I will get my blog caught up. I've been a very bad blogger. I apologize.
I'll have one from like 2000.
And if people have questions for me that I didn't get to tonight, you can also find me on Twitter at Nightwolf Writer. Again, all one word. If I don't know it, I will try to find the answer as quickly as I can. But I'm certainly willing to try and help people avoid mistakes that I've made and I've seen other people make. So I'm trying to pay it forward as best I can, because people out there certainly kept me from making a lot of dumb mistakes, and I mean that in a nice way, because I'm not saying your listeners are making dumb mistakes, but I was making dumb mistakes, and people went out of their way to try and steer me the right way.
Well, that's awesome, and we thank you for it, because there's a lot of scams out there. There's a lot of different ways that the self-publishing and even trade publishing can go wrong. So, you definitely need to know what to look out for. And it's not all bad, especially when, you do the homework, you do the research, and know what you're getting into. So to everyone in the live chat, thank you so much for hanging out with us. Let us know what you thought about the show in the comments, and show your support with a thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the little bell.
Ding!
So you always know when we've got something going on. For Lauren Moore, I am Kayleen Williams. Thank you for joining us on your writer's journey. Be sure to check back next time, where we're going to talk about some reading, writing, and everything in between, right here on Keystroke Mediums.